Hello, BigTube. Hello, friends. Welcome to LizziefayeLovesBooks. I'm Elizabeth. It is already kind of early evening, and I'm losing my light quick, but I really want to film this today. It's Sunday afternoon, March the 5th. I'm actually in the middle of the live stream video of the first Killing Time with Cozy's March Mystery Madness reading sprints, also the first one that we're doing on a Sunday. I think most of them are going to be on Sunday from now on, moving forward. But we're in a sprint, and so I told him I'm probably going to come and film my February wrap-up because I really need to get this done today. And so I think since I didn't really read as much as I normally do, I am going to be able to get this done in the time allotted. In the time allotted. So let's just get started. I normally kind of break things down by genre, but instead I'm going to break things down by project this time because, of course, the Little House Readathon was in early February, and I did not get all of these done during the 4 days, but my Little House themed reading, I'm just going to give you a total of that. I did read or listen to, I guess these were all listens, 7 books that I listened to, and then I started 2 in print that I did not finish, and I am putting them aside until June because I have March Mystery Madness this month, next month is Amish in April, and I'm traveling, and the month after that will be middle grade May, and so I'm just not going to get back to them until June. And then for the Retro Romance Readathon, which is hosted by Storm from Storm Reads, it was actually created by Storm, and then she also had a couple of co-hosts, Sarah and Melissa. I read 4 or listened to 4 books for that. For my book club, I listened to 2 books, and one of them was a book that I was supposed to have read earlier, like I don't even remember what month it was supposed to be, but anyway, I was late in finishing it, but that was fine. And then I have 2 different read-alongs that I finished 1 book for each of those. And I finished 1 book from my TBR jar, and I read 1 book of poetry. And I read or finished 3 different books for my devotional reading. And one of those is the book I was reading with Emily. I neglected to add up how many of these were print and how many were audio, but I think only about, let's see, 3, 4, 5. I think just 5 of them that I finished were print books, and the rest were audio. Okay, so real quick, let me show you what I read. I think I've already kind of talked about what I read for the Little House Readathon. 5 of the books that I listened to were rereads of the Little House series. So I started with By the Shores of Silver Lake, which is book 5. And the reason I started there is because I have reread the first 4 at some point in my life, and we were reading The Long Winter as a read-along or as a group read, and I wanted to listen to it, and I thought, well, why skip over number 5? I may as well go ahead and listen to it. And then I got to The Long Winter, and then I thought, well, why stop there? Why not go ahead and reread the rest of the series? So the next one is Little Town on the Prairie. And then the next one is, excuse my voice, These Happy Golden Years. And then the First 4 Years. And then in addition to that, I also listened to a book that I don't have a physical copy of. My library doesn't even have it. I believe it's called Bright Lights, Prairie Dust by Karen Grassley, and you do pronounce her name Grassley. It's hard for me to say that because to me it looks like it should be Grassel, but I have, I've heard her say it, and then I went back and double-checked, and yeah, she's saying Grassley. And even in her memoir, she jokes about people mispronouncing it, so she knows people do it. Anyway, it was a little bit of a disappointment because, well, several reasons, and I think I talked about that already. You can read some reviews and things. There's some mixed reviews on it, but it was still very interesting, and I'm glad that I read it, even though it wasn't really what I was hoping for, but still, it is what it is, I guess, as they say. Then I also read actually more of a spiritual book, but it sort of gave an ode to Little House on the Prairie because it's called Little House on the Freeway. This is by Tim Kimmel. It is Help for the Hurried Home, and it's more about just prioritizing, and I've actually already kind of forgotten a little bit about what it was about, but I did listen to an abridged version. I'm going to hang on to this print copy. I would like to definitely delve back into this and read it thoroughly, and perhaps glean more from it than I did quickly on audio. And then the other nonfiction book I read was a book of poetry, and this is not on Goodreads anywhere. So Storm, if you're watching this, I need you to help me out here. I'll send you some pictures of it, and I'd like to get an entry made for this on Goodreads. This is called The Harvesters by Gertrude Ryder Bennett. And sorry, the lighting, it feels bright in here, but yet it's probably because it's getting dark, unless maybe my husband changed the light bulb. I don't know. It seems brighter in here than it usually does. Anyway, this was not what I was expecting. I thought when I just glanced at this that it was going to be a book of Christian poems. It actually wasn't, but it was interesting. I'm not a poetry reader, and it was more kind of circle of life sort of things. It did talk about death a lot, but it was more in the nature sense of things. So, I don't know. It was interesting. I probably will add this to my eBay store once we get it added to Goodreads. If you're interested, or if you're interested, you don't have to wait till it goes on my eBay store. Let me know. I'll be happy to send it to somebody if you're curious about it and would like to read it. I just picked it up at a library sale, so I'm happy to share. All right, so then I got started talking about nonfiction, so let me just segue on into that. Oh, first, though, the two books that I started and didn't finish that I'm going to go back to in June is Prairie Tale by Melissa Gilbert. This is a memoir. And then a book I've had on my shelf for a while that I had read from, but I don't think I've ever read the whole thing. I Remember Laura. It's edited by Stephen Hines, and it just gives a lot of recollections of people who actually knew her. And I brought this in here just to show you. I have not read this. I started it. My brother and his new wife visited us in February, and they are now going to be, for the most part, full-time RVers. So I have a feeling he's going to be the type where wherever he goes, if he can lighten his load somewhere along the way, he will, because he brought a couple of books that he was done with. I guess he had read them on the trip. And we ended up trading one of them in at the bookstore where I work so that he could get a different book. But this one, I didn't let him trade in. I said, I kind of want to read that. It's a beautiful book, but it's sad. And it is about, it's called Children of the Dust Bowl by Jerry Stanley. And it has a lot of photographs. Take my bookmark out and risk where I am. I didn't even put this on my currently reading. I just started reading it because I thought maybe I could read it in one sitting. But then I thought, no, I'm not going to rush through it. But it does have maps and photography. And it is just really interesting. So I'm curious to know if any of you have ever seen this before. And if this is something that intrigues you. I'm not sure where he got it. You could probably get it on Amazon. I haven't even looked. But this is something that I'm probably going to hang on to. For sure, I'm going to read it, and then I'll decide what I'm going to do with it. And then for my devotional time, I read the book of Romans in the first half of the month, and then the book of 1 Corinthians in the second half of the month. And then Emily and I, for 2 months, have been reading the Beginner's Bible, Timeless Children's Stories. So these are just very scaled down Bible stories. And we just took our time. We read 2 or 3 a day over a 2-month period, and we finished it. So now we have started something different, which I talked about in my video yesterday. Okay, so let's talk about the Retro Romance Readathon next. I had planned to read a whole series, and it was a series of 6, and I only got to 4 of them. I just forgot to come back. I got the first 4 done before the Little House Readathon started, and then I just forgot to come back and read the other 2 or listen to them. But it's the Navy series by Debbie Macomber. I'm not sure that I have the order written down of these, or that I even remember the order, but let me just show them to you. Navy Woman, Navy Blues, Navy Wife, and Navy Brat. And I'm pretty sure that's not the correct order. I hopefully will have already put numbers at the bottom of each one as I show them to you. And then I believe the other 2 are Navy Husband, and I'll put what number it is, and Navy Baby. Again, I don't remember the order of these, but those are the 6 books. I will get to these other 2 sometime before the end of the year. If there's another romance readathon that happens later in the year, then I can pick those up then. But anyway, I got the first 4 done. I'm kind of on a quest to read all of Debbie Maycomber's back catalog. Those were not as enjoyable to me as the Heart of Texas series was that I read last year. I listened to last year. I guess I read the last one in print. Maybe the last 2. So I really enjoyed those. I highly recommend them. These were fine, but just not up to the caliber, I think, of the Heart of Texas series, which I thought was fantastic. It had just a great mix of mystery and intrigue and romance and everything, where these was, whereas the Navy books were just straight up romance and a little bit of angst because, you know, the Navy husbands are always gone, always leaving, you know, that kind of thing. Okay, so the 2 book club books that I read, I think we read this for maybe for February, and I just didn't get it done in time. My audiobook didn't come in, but it came in right at the last day of the month, so I hurried up and finished it up. This is The Many Daughters of Afong Moy by Jamie Ford, and I did enjoy this. When I first started listening to it, I wasn't really sure what was happening, and then I did go to the discussion for this book because we read this one for my literary book club, and then I heard some of the discussion, even though it didn't really spoil me for much. I mean, it's not a mystery, so it was fine. And then that kind of helped me then when I came back to finish listening to it. I started understanding a little bit more about what was actually happening. Part of it takes place in the future, which I didn't pick up on when I first started the book. And so very interesting, very enjoyable. The basic theme of it is how through the generations, memories and things can happen in people, even if they never knew the person. They might have some shared memories, or maybe someone who you are genetically connected with. You might have the same life experiences, even though you don't grow up together, that kind of thing. So if that sounds interesting to you, you might want to pick up this book. The author's notes in that book are definitely worth reading. And then I also read The Last House on the Street for book club. I guess this was our February book club pick, and Afong Moy must have been our January pick, because I know that has been hanging around my house in one form or another for a while now. So anyway, I read this on time, so I was able to participate in the discussion for this one, and I thought this was fantastic. It has dual timeline. Part of it is set during the time in the 60s when integration was happening and there was a lot of racial tension. And then we meet some of the same people in more of a current time frame. I think it's 2010 is when the other time frame is. So anyway, very good. Highly recommend it. I don't think I'd ever read any other books by Diane Chamberlain, and I've heard quite a few people speak very highly of her, so I definitely want to check out more of her books. In fact, if you've read any other books by Diane Chamberlain that you want to recommend to me, please do so in the comments. And then the read-alongs that I'm participating in, there are a few, but I did read 2 books for 2 different read-alongs. For the Follow Us to Fair Acre read-along, we read Emily Davis by Miss Reed. This is book 8 in the Fair Acre series, and I thought it was wonderful. I don't think I loved it as much as some of the others loved it. When we did Kate Howe's live stream discussion, I got to participate in that again, so thank you, Kate, for inviting me to do that. But it was fine. It wasn't my favorite Miss Reed book. There was a variety of stories, and people were reminiscing about Emily Davis and her life and how she affected them and their life in the past. And very good. Miss Reed always tells a great story and writes in such an idyllic setting that I think so far all I've read have definitely been worth picking up, and she is quickly becoming a favorite author of mine. And I kind of knew she would be, really, whenever I first started collecting her books. And then the other read-along is the Triple Top Treat read-along, and that is the 3 Cozy Mystery series by Jen McKinley. I only got one read this month in February, because I had to read this in print. This is Books Can Be Deceiving, which is book 1 in the Library Lovers Mysteries. Now, I thought this was great. I really enjoyed it. I kind of guessed who the murderer was going to be, but there was still a twist at the end. So I thought it was really good. And I just kind of had lost my reading groove for most of the month, and I was not reading as much or as quickly as I sometimes do. So it just took me all month to get this read, and so I finished it up on the last day of February, and I didn't get to start or listen to book 3 of the Cupcake Bakery Mysteries until March 1st. And that only took me one day to do, and I got it done, and I'll definitely be able to catch up. Well, I say that, but I've got to read book 2 of this in print. And now I've picked up with the Southern Sewing Circle Mysteries, which I'm reading right now. So hopefully I'll catch up at some point. But anyway, this was really good. And I've heard other people say that they don't like this first one as well as some of the other books in the series. So I'm really looking forward to that because I thought this was great. And, you know, if they get better from here, then that's awesome. And I think that is almost everything. I did read or listen to one book out of my TBR jar that I really enjoyed. This is The Avalon Ladies Scrapbooking Society by Darian G. I believe it's G. I thought it was G at first, but I think it's G. So even though I can't find anywhere where it says this is a sequel, after reading it, it is most definitely a sequel or at least a companion book to Amish Friendship Bread by Darian G., which really, I guess they didn't link them because you could read this one without reading the other. But I feel like it's better to read the first one first because it's all the same characters, or a lot. There's a lot of the same characters, and it does refer back to some things that happened in Amish Friendship Bread. So I think if you're going to read this one, you should go ahead and read the first one. They're both great books. I've enjoyed them both. And this one was about the life of a woman who heads up the scrapbooking society in her town. She sells scrapbook supplies, but she is starting to suffer from some form of dementia or memory loss, and it just goes from there. So I thought it was really good, and I would recommend it. So I think that is everything. Let me consult my list and see if I told you about everything, and I did. So I read a total of, I think, 19 books for the month, if you count the 2 books of the Bible, which I have counted the whole Bible as read a couple of times, and so now as I'm reading each individual book, I am adding those in as individual books for this year. So that's it for this video. Like I said, I didn't get as much read as I would have liked to, but I'm still happy with what I got done, and I am looking forward to reading more in March and really digging into several mystery books and mystery series. And then I'm going to be traveling for a lot of the month of April. But before I leave, you will know all the details about Amish in April. So stay tuned for that. But for now, that's all for this video. I thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a great day. Read a good book, and God bless you.